Chapter 267, Feeling. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Jang Yuochen touched his chin and said, "There is another way." Senior Sister Apprentice, you can take the initiative to break off the engagement. Senior Sister Apprentice Yu. Huang Yanchen stood up suddenly, shaking with anger. A blast of cold genuine chi rushed out from her body and ice crystals formed around the room. Did I say something wrong again? Jang Yuochen felt Huang Yanchen's anger and was puzzled. Bang! Huang Yanchen struck out her palm toward Jang Yuochen's chest. Jang Yuochen sat on the chair, stretched his fingers out quickly to grab Huang Yanchen's wrist and said, "Senior Sister Apprentice, you have a terrible temper. Even if you want to fight, you should tell me the reason." Senior Sister Apprentice, why are you crying? Huang Yanchen threw herself into Jang Yuochen's arms with her lips pressed together tightly. Her arms, white as a lotus root, held Jang Yuochen and she buried her face in his chest. She shed a flood of tears and kept sobbing. Jang Yuochen was petrified and felt the warmth in his arms. He never expected that the ice-cold Huang Yanchen could be like a little girl, throwing herself into his arms, crying, and beating his chest lightly. This feeling was unreal. Was this really the imperious devil of Western Campus, Huang Yanchen? Was this really the supercilious, arrogant princess of Cayenne's Yue Commandery, Huang Yanchen? Senior Sister Apprentice, Jang Yuochen sat on the chair and dared not move. His mind was a complete blank. Jang Yuochen was only 18 years old. A woman had never thrown herself into his arms before. It felt very strange. Jang Yuochen was really thrown for a loop. Huang Yanchen was a weeping beauty. She sobbed, "Jang Yuochen, I don't want to break it off, I just don't. I don't know when it happened. Perhaps in Earth number 1, by the bathing pool. When I gave you a serious injury with one fist, we were already tied together by fate. Or maybe, when we practiced the shadow of the Royal Wind Dragon in Chikong's secret mansion, when you rescued me from the poisonous spider club. I don't know why I've fallen for you. When I heard that you were being hunted down by the masters of the poisonous spider club and Square Commandery, I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to see you again. After all, you were so young. How could you defeat those insidious, devious masters? It wasn't until then that I realized and confirmed the true feelings in my heart. But why are you so brutal as to refuse me? Why must you break off the engagement? Why? Huang Yanchen grabbed Jang Yuochen's clothes and kept asking questions. She was in misery and bathed in tears. As he heard Huang Yanchen's confession, Jang Yuochen's eyes gradually softened. Huang Yanchen at this moment was not an unreasonable, frost-hearted beauty, but a woman who needed to be cared for. With her arrogance, it was difficult for her to be so vulnerable with her feelings. It was mainly because he knew little about affection and had been unable to see Huang Yanchen's love. If he was a womanizer, he would have seen through Huang Yanchen a long time ago. She would never have needed to be so straightforward. Once he spoke, there would be no going back. Should he refuse or agree? If he refused her, would she be sadder? Would they become strangers from then on? If he agreed, was he really going to marry her? Jang Yuochen had not prepared for this. After all, he was only 18. And, he never expected that something he had done unintentionally would become a romance. Jang Yuochen did not know how to respond, so he hesitated for a long time. Then, he said, "Senior Sister Apprentice, actually, I loved someone else, and I won't love another woman anytime soon." Huang Yanchen lifted her head with tear marks on her face, and said, "Who is it? Chen Xia, Juanmook Singerling, or Han Ku?" Jang Yuochen shook his head and said, "None of them." Senior Sister Apprentice, you can be assured, I won't mention breaking up in the future anymore. As you said, since I agreed to the engagement, there is no way we could break it off. Are you pitying me? Huang Yanchen's eyes were cold. She stood up, tidied up her messy clothes, and dried her tears. She turned around and did not dare to look Jang Yuochen in the eye. "Sorry." Jang Yuochen sighed. He knew Huang Yanchen's feelings for him, and he had positive feelings for her, too. But how could he forget the woman he once loved? Both love and hatred were so powerful. Before Jang Yuochen found out what had happened 800 years ago, he could only focus on the martial arts and try not to let himself get emotionally bogged down. If he could let go of Kai Yao totally in the future, He might find a girl he could get along with. They could be together like a match made in heaven, which was not a bad thing. Jang Yuochen, never tell Duan Mook Singling and Chen Xia what just happened. No, you should never tell anyone. You have to know that I've never cried before. Huang Yanchen said coldly, her eyes red. All right, I should head back. Jang Yuochen said goodbye to Huang Yanchen. His feelings were very confusing, and he was thinking about a lot of things that happened long ago. He needed to go someplace to clear his mind. Huang Yanchen let Jang Yuochen walk away. She never even turned around. Once Jang Yuochen had walked out of the practice mansion, Huang Yanchen stomped her feet hard and hit her own head angrily. What was wrong with me? Why did I hold on to Jang Yuochen crying and talk about those things with him? Does he think that I was begging him? He must be laughing at me. Damn. Who the hell is the woman in his heart? Huang Yanchen had great inner strength and would never give up. She was sure that if she worked hard enough, she could walk into Jang Yuochen's heart sooner or later. Huang Yanchen was not really concerned that someone else was in Jang Yuochen's heart. Any powerful man would have lots of wives and concubines. Huang Yanchen's father, the Cayenne Yui commandery prince, had married Huang Yanchen's mother, but he had other concubines, too, with dozens of sons and daughters. It was a normal thing. The key was that Huang Yanchen felt she had to have a place in Jang Yuochen's heart. Other women could not occupy Jang Yuochen's heart completely. Since he has promised that he will never again mention breaking off the engagement, there are countless possibilities. Huang Yanchen clenched her hands and said, no matter who the girl is, I don't believe that she is too outstanding to be defeated. At least I am Jang Yuochen's legal fiancé now, which is my biggest advantage.